Crime. It's a small word with a heavy impact, shaping where we go, how late we stay out, and even where we choose to live. Baton Rouge is no stranger to crime. Our city has made national headlines for its skyrocketing murder rate, but the problem, and even the solutions, are far from simple. There have been some bold solutions to help manage the problem, but like a lot of things, it could all come down to money. In this episode, we sit down one on one with the East Baton Rouge Parish District Attorney. We're digging into the numbers, the challenges, and the reality of crime in our community. All happening right now on Louisiana Unfiltered. Welcome back, everyone. This week, we are joined by the East Baton Rouge Parish District Attorney, Hillar Moore. Hillar, thank you for joining us.
Glad to be in the country with you.
Only Hillar. So, Hillar, let's talk crime. Five letters, but it is the most important thing we can discuss because it impacts public safety. It determines how safe we feel when we're going out and about, where we're going. A lot of people in Livingston Parish, prime example, or Ascension, they're preferring to go towards Hammond instead of going towards Baton Rouge because of the crime. But it's easy to say this. And yes, the younger reporter would probably say, oh, it's a police thing. We're now learning that crime is not a one entity. It is not police. It's an onion that you just keep peeling back. But so much of what the police do and the judges do dictates how you are able to do your job.
Yes.
Let's start with some statistics. We've done some very in-depth reporting thanks to you and a lot of the information you've provided us. Talk to us about last year and this year and kind of the trend as to what we're looking at in East Baton Rouge Parish.
So last year was, a rough year. We wound up with 102 homicides, which is way over where we should be. Our best years ever, to my knowledge, and I've been in the business now for 50 years. So I'm 70, been here doing this 50 years in one way or the other. My best years ever were 60, 62, and that's when we had the Brave era that was going on at 62, 64, 67. That was the best years ever. We should be, a city our size, should be at 50 to high 40s. That's compared to other cities our size around the country, but the South has always historically been higher in violence than anywhere else, and particularly those deep South like us, with guns and a lot of gun history, have been higher, and I think that's part of the reason for it. And if you were to read some of the books that have come out of Hammond, out of the Southeastern, this Professor Hyde and wife have written a lot, thinks a lot of the gun violence, which is due to honor or respect or disrespect, is learned from slavery times and when people when nobility feuded with each other, and it was over respect. And his books are very interesting in that regard, and maybe explain why it's a little more, so much more in the South than somewhere else.
Interesting. Okay.
But our worst year was the year of COVID, and I think that everybody was not sure what was going to happen, except we pretty much believed domestic violence was going to really rise. And I remember standing on the front steps of the courthouse with all the judges, police chiefs, sheriff, you name it, saying, hey, we're not sure what's going to happen just yet, but we think domestic violence is going to rise. It's going to be interesting as a country to see what happens, because all of the criminologists, we were all meeting together through Zooms and all, trying to identify what was going to happen, how should we handle it, and let's get back together after it's all said and done. And some even thought that the overdose situation would go down because those people who were at risk of overdosing, they'd be close to their family members. They wouldn't use as much. Well, after all said and done, domestic violence just went out the roof. For that year, we had 150 homicides, which is the biggest ever. We had 32 of the 150 were domestic violence or intimate partner related. That was the highest number we ever had. And then that's really when we saw the spike in fentanyl overdoses, and it really continued throughout the time there. And it looked like some of the fentanyl overdose deaths coincided with when checks were dispersed by the federal government. And I remember watching at the Baton Rouge Business Report when Dr. Lawrence Scott had a graph. He showed when checks were hitting and how different things occurred. It had nothing to do with crime. And that date just really stood out to me. So we went back and looked at the dates, and I'd be darned if when those checks hit, and that's the money was spent on street drugs, and the overdose deaths went up. So yeah, that's it's been brutal since that day, that time, 150, but now we're down to 102. I say down. We're way above where we should be, and hopefully this year things will come down. Right now we're even somewhat of last year. Shots fired are down 28, 29% this month, year to date, which is always a good sign. And if your listeners understand or read some of the things about crime, non-fatal shootings, it is a bullet to a body versus a bullet to a door. That's the score that you always want to keep, because that takes away a good doctor, a close hospital, a bad shot, a good shot. That's what you want to look at. And it's always going to be your next murder. The non-fatal shooting, you missed him. Now you're mad because now you go have to find him again, and now he knows you shot at him. Now him and his group are going to come look for you. So it's just an endless cycle of continuing. So if there's a way that we could devote more time, effort, money, manpower to non-fatal shootings, which is hard to do, that's where you really have the most impact on the bottom line number of homicides. And homicides got to drive everything. It drives the news. Because you don't see a lot about non-fatals. You didn't see a lot about fentanyl. It's always about a homicide. And the victim was always going to be up and coming, something or another, until maybe you peel that back, and then maybe that's not always the case. As you know, our victims are our defendants are our victims. Nobody wants to cooperate. Absolutely nobody wants to cooperate. So now we're left with our witnesses being DNA, scientific people in the lab, and cell phone downloads. And that's, or if we're fortunate to have video. Because even if someone cooperates at the beginning and tells you something, later on they're hiding from you, they won't come to court. And we've seen it happen time and time again. So you have to make your case as best as you can, as quick as you can, and hopefully without testimonial evidence, which is hard to do.
So let's back up. You said that this past year we rounded out with 102 homicides.
Actually, the number of last year was 107, not 102. So there's a difference between what the coroners report and what we report. It's still the same amount of dead bodies. What we report is uniform crime reports, UCR reports. That is what the FBI keeps, and that every state, every locality keeps the same numbers by the same rules, the same definitions. When the coroner gets a report, like justified homicides, manslaughter, those are included in coroner's number when they're not a UCR FBI reported number. So that's the difference between what the coroner reports and what we report.
Okay.
He reports homicides. We report ones that are prosecuted. Correct.
Okay. So what was the number before then?
The year before was 112. The year before that, 151. Year before that, 117. And year before that, 82. So big difference. Numbers are coming down, not coming down like we've seen in other jurisdictions, including Orleans.
Talk to me about this month so far. I say this month. Let's talk about January. February just started, but talk to us about last year's January and this year's January.
So we're pretty dead even. 11 and 10. I think 11 last year, 10 or 11 this year. I'm not exactly positive. I have to look at the numbers again, but we're pretty close to even, although the non-fatal shootings are down 29%, which
I don't get that, Hillar. How is that down 29? That's significant, right? That's a pretty big number.
It is. So they don't always go hand in hand. Over time, they go in hand. Like if that number will continue to keep at that pace, you'll see the murders will be. I'll feel a whole lot better that the murder rate will be a lot less this year if it continues at that. But that number seems to fluctuate.
Okay.
And a difference of 1 or 2 can mean a difference of 10 to 12 to 20%. So we're early on in the year, so I'd have to be real cautious about our numbers right now.
The other thing you were telling me is that January usually is a quiet month.
Well, so again, having been in the business 50 years, it used to be a quiet month because it was just that time. It was holiday season time. But the last several years, we have 10, 15, 16 homicides in January and February. December was also the same. So what we're seeing, I think, is the change of holiday times, people at home with families, friends. Everyone knows where they're gathered, drinking, drugs, and guns. And so it's turned out to be more deadly because of adding all of that. And then add on top of that mental health with all the other things that we deal with. So normally your family and your friends are your best folks you want to be around. But as COVID showed us, it wasn't that great for domestic violence. And so I think that we see a lot of that with regard to murder during the holiday season.
What about the summer months? Usually that's the peak season, correct?
Yep. I recall, back in those days when we were just fighting homicides, we did not want to see a summer month. That's why we did so much outreach back then. But the last few years, the summer months have been our best allies of maybe sometimes 5 on a summer month, which is unheard of anywhere around the country, but for us, for sure, very low numbers. So it's been surprising. It's really, it's hit and miss. It's not a rhyme or reason to it, oftentimes.
So let's start breaking down now that those were some of the stats you gave us, and we're going to get to overdoses as well because I do want to talk about that. But let's continue on to this onion that you keep pulling the layers back, basically. You brought up a very important subject as far as kids and summer months. One of the most important things I find is that you've got to give children something to do after school in order for them to be off the streets.
Yes.
Talk to us about that. How important is that?
Well, first of all, they have to go to school. And, if you knew the numbers for truancy in Baton Rouge, you'd be pissed, outraged that the number is that big.
What is it?
Particularly it depends on a school. But some schools have an 85% truancy rate. So truancy, you're a truant if you miss 5 days or more of unexcused absences. And when we were doing this study that I talked to you earlier about early childhood education and what we've studied with the Baton Rouge Area Foundation, the school board, the COVID years really messed us all up because nobody was in school. So keeping truancy numbers were tough during those years. But everything seems to start at the home. And if you do not start in the home and then into the neighborhood, then your child is at risk of being having a really rough life.
And
particularly if you're a young black male in Baton Rouge and you do not have an education, and if you're in a group or gang setting or dealing drugs, the numbers are you are 900% more likely to kill or be killed than anybody else walking the streets of Baton Rouge, black or white. So your course is pretty damn set as you enter kindergarten, first grade. If you go in unprepared, like a lot of the kids that we see are totally unprepared, and the other set of kids that their family has read to them, taught them letters, numbers, things of that nature, they're way off on the chart already. They're going forward. The other kids cannot catch up, and they get left behind, and you see it happen all the time. And that's why what started the study that we did is that looking at the education levels of the kids who are the defendants or the victims, when you're looking at they're stopping in the 6th grade, it's like something's wrong here. And we understand why things are happening the way they're happening, and we have to find a way to change that. So it's a big ship to right, and I think it's going to take us a decade or two to change that. And hopefully the study that it will eventually will come out that we can discuss maybe more later is the way to bring more awareness to that and change the city of Baton Rouge forever.
Well, and we are starting to see more and more young kids, 14, 15. I mean, we just had a 14-year-old who killed a grandmother right in front of her 8-year-old grandson. But we're seeing the age go lower and lower and lower
Yep.
of the gunmen.
Yeah, and I don't believe a bunch of the nonsense that'll read national news. I mean, I have one article on my desk to read, and I'm just too angry to read it right now. It's just saying about how the numbers are inflated, about how many young kids are killing or being killed or involved with violent crime, that the numbers are down. I just don't see it. Maybe there's a place that sees it. I'm just not seeing it here. I'm seeing it more and more. Back in when I first started, I guess as DA 17 years ago, I thought that if you got to a child before 14 years of age, you could change that child's life, which you can still on some occasion. That number is steadily going down real quickly to kindergarten, and now I'm down to back in the womb. If you don't start there and things aren't prepared then you're just not setting a really good course, and you're going to be way behind. But we are seeing more and more kids who just the guns that they have and the fully automated weapons that they have, the machine gun devices that they have on these weapons. Some of the killings they're doing for adults who know it. Lack of any filters that they're trained to say no, like what's going to happen once you pull the trigger and the bullet comes out the other end. What's the end result of that years later to the person who you pointed the gun at? Not seeing that filter system in their life at all. And I know I'm thinking about my dad whipping my butt, and when I'm doing something, I'm not sure that that's going through these children's brains right now. They see it in the music they hear, the people that they're with, who's on television, who's doing what. All of that makes a big difference.
But where are they getting this from? Like you talked about that there's an increase in automated weapons locally, correct?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, every year we've been seeing a 50% increase in machine gun devices. MCDs is what it's called. The street talk is a Glock switch or an auto sear. So a Glock switch, better fit for a Glock than another gun, and so it's why it's called the Glock switch. Fits on the back of the weapon. You can buy it for $30. You can buy more expensive ones that are made of metal, some are plastic, and a regular semi-automatic weapon, which just about everyone has. Now you pull a trigger, and every time you pull it, a bullet comes out. With a Glock switch or a switch, once you pull that weapon, it'll expend every bullet that's in that chamber. A switch, on the other hand, is for the longer guns that we see way too often, much more powerful. It's a small device, another $30 device that fits inside the chamber of the weapon. And again, once you pull that trigger, your whole canister, if you have a 60-round canister, 80-round canister, it's going off until you let off the switch. And if you saw the video that we did with these large ATF agents, they themselves, well trained at this, have a hard time holding that weapon. You can imagine how hot that weapon's getting. And so it makes a deadly weapon just even more weaponized from there. And the other thing that it does is it causes more harm to the person using it, because they oftentimes shoot themselves as they're pulling the weapon out to use it, or shoot up the car that they're in. But if you're trying to kill one person and there's others around, as you're moving that weapon around with 80 bullets flying out, you're going to kill more than one person. So we have seen that over the years where more than one have been killed. But that device, as cheap as it is, and has now been outlawed in Louisiana, and it was a bill that our office sponsored. It passed with one nay vote in the entire House and Senate, which was amazing for Louisiana, because we've tried to pass some gun bills before to make them a little smarter gun bills, but tough to do in Louisiana. But that one passed with only one nay vote, which was good for us. So now, even if you just possess the switch itself, the $30 switch, it's now a felony. The one disappointment in that law, and I kind of understand why the opponents didn't agree with it, but the NRA agreed with our bill, which is big for us. They would not agree to make that a crime of violence, which would prevent you from carrying a weapon in the future. So I can convict you now in Louisiana of possession of a machine gun. You can do up to 10 years in jail, and you can get right out and buy another weapon. So you're not prohibited. So I understood their reasoning. They had some legal reasoning behind it. We wanted the law passed, so I think that it was a good compromise for us. The representative who carried the bill, DeWitt, he himself was paralyzed. He's in a wheelchair from a semi-automatic weapon where he was shot by accident from a weapon across the street from him. So he was a good spokesman for us to have and explained it. But these are really causing us some serious problems in Baton Rouge and across the nation because of the amount of money that it costs to either make one yourself on a 3D printer or just buy a bag of 30 and pass them around. It's easy. It's a cool thing to have.
We're seeing more multiple shootings where it's double, triple. Would you say that this is why?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And everyone has guns and everyone's shooting. They all want their part. They need to brag about what they do. And they do oftentimes brag about what they do. They'll show their weapons, fortunately for us sometimes, but never want to come in and testify after that.
Mm. So that is the violence part. That's you got to have some kind of upbringing properly, and it needs to start at home. It's why we're starting to see younger and younger criminals. What about the school element?
I mean, again, school's huge. If you're not in school, you know what's happening. I mean, you're idle. And if you're not in school, then what about the after-school program that you're not going to be at anyway? So if we could at least get you into school, you're there with a teacher, that cares and is trying to teach you. You're not on the street. That's a big part of the battle. Then after that, it's the after-school program because a lot of the kids have nowhere to go, what to do. The other big part of going to school is eating. These kids who do not go to school just do not eat. And I think 85% of the students that are in public school are under the poverty guidelines. So that means they get a free breakfast, free lunch. And if you're late for school, you're not going to eat breakfast. And if you're not there, you're not going to have breakfast or lunch. Makes it real difficult. And then when you add to that, these kids who are at the high-risk locations, they're probably hearing gunshots go off at night. Probably not the best sleep that they can have. And their parents are also just as involved, or relatives are. I'm not sure what the tone is in the house for respect for law enforcement. I mean, all of that goes into all of it. And so that's a big deal.
What about drugs? Does that play a role into this?
It seems to be, a lot of the kids that we deal with start smoking weed all day. And so, makes you lazy, in my opinion. There was a study that just came out yesterday, I can share it with you, that showed the effect on the brain of chronic users of marijuana, but also the youth that use marijuana and the parts of the brain that it affects the most. And I think that's really important to see. You see it all over the social media that they're posting of themselves, smoking weed, taking pills, doing syrup, with guns, sometimes with the parents, sometimes with not. So being drug-free in grammar school is pretty important. So it makes it very difficult on the teachers.
You just talked about we were talking about it before we came on, opioids.
Yeah, we used to talk about heroin.
Mm-hmm.
So heroin pretty much was eradicated a long time ago where that you would never see heroin anymore because the sentences were pretty damn high. I mean, I remember growing up in New Orleans where there were some heroin dealers, and once they were arrested, they received life imprisonment. Then moving to college here, seeing some heroin and same kind of effect happen there with that. And there used to be maybe one or two heroin dealers that everyone kind of knew who they were, and you would try to go after them and to take them off the street because people were dying of heroin. Then all of a sudden, heroin kind of went away, I guess in part due to the statutes and the time that they were getting.
Okay.
And then the synthetic stuff started coming, and then fentanyl hit the street. And I remember testifying a long time ago, 12 years ago. It was Mike Edmondson was the superintendent at the time, and I forget who the chief of the Sheriff Gautreaux, when we were seeing 5 or 7 fentanyl deaths, and we were awarded to death. And I think it got up to 12 one year, and then we were really scared because we're seeing this fentanyl come across Louisiana. It had already hit spikes in the north a little bit, more than where we were. But when we were seeing those numbers, we were scared, not knowing what we were going to be scared of, and had no idea that we'd have 300 a year.
Yeah.
And it would triple a really bad homicide number. So I guess we were scared for the right reason and did not know it would ever get that high, but it did. And so we hovered around 300 per year. And rare is it now that you overdose and die of cocaine or heroin, although it does happen, crystal meth.
Mm-hmm.
It does happen. The overwhelming number is fentanyl. And the scary part is that fentanyl now seems to be mixed in just about everything that anyone takes, with the exception of marijuana, although we have seen a touch of it, heard stories across the nation. But it's in the pills, it's in cocaine, it's in just about everything. I think most people expect it to be there. The one sad thing that we learned is that the people that use or are addicted to fentanyl, who are good people and they come from every cross section that there is, they want the deadliest fentanyl they can get.
Why?
And we have found that when someone overdoses and dies, the fentanyl users want that dealer and they want his fentanyl because they know he's got the good stuff. And they want to be brought to the death's doorstep because they know that their body can take much more than the person who maybe just got out of rehab and wasn't ready to get back to the level that they were, that they can handle it. They believe that they can handle it. And so we have seen them seek out those dealers who deal deadly heroin. We've seen the increase in fentanyl in certain particular areas of town where we saw motels, hotels, and that number has really dried up a lot. But the best news ever is that ending last year, we ended at 35% reduction. That was phenomenal.
Would you say that's because EBR and BRPD have really, really zoned in? It's been nonstop with the drug busts.
So, yes, so I can tell you that. Let's start with the sheriff's office. Tanner Jenkins in the sheriff's office, the narcotics section, the street crimes SCAT team, whatever names that they are, have just literally kicked ass on people that deal in fentanyl. They have no sympathy. They're going to get you if you're out there. If they have time to get to you, they make so many cases. I can't keep up with the names of people they bring in, the amount of drugs that they bring in. And I joke like, or can you slow down for a day? And they devote the time. But not only do they make the arrests are outstanding, and the evidence is outstanding. The amount of time that they put into and the research they do, they make very good cases. So they make cases that are normally considered, this is a federal case, because it's one that's so big, there's so much fentanyl, and they have guns and they have confessions, they have video. That's the ones that the feds are going to take, give them a lot of time. Well, overwhelmingly, those cases stay in state court. We can get significant amount of time in state court, but given our ability and the lack of people that we have, it makes it a lot harder to get to them as quickly as we want to. So that's one big deal. The city made the biggest one bust in history of the United States.
They did.
And so that's one person who probably was dealing a little bit in Baton Rouge, not all, but it was through other places. That's a big number. That's the amount of drugs that would kill Tiger Stadium several times. And then it's the outreach that Tanja Miles and her group, along with John Daly, that works at our office. It's a CPA. So they look at the data that First Sergeant Sonia Armstrong, that runs our crime strategies unit, she looks at the data where are people overdosing right now. And then on the weekends, gets that data to the people that walk the street. And they walk the street now with When You Are Ready. It's a campaign that you're not going to convince someone just to quit drugs just because you're going to be a good friend to them and say, hey, please stop, it's bad for you. It's when you're ready to stop, you're going to stop, and that's the name of it. And then the availability of Narcan has been a really big deal in saving people's lives. So they're not overdosing as much. So maybe you do give them another choice to say, okay, I've had enough, I want to stop. The downside is, are you encouraging them to do more drugs? I'd rather save a life now than not. I now know so many people who have died from fentanyl. I know parents, good friends with them, never knew them before, know them now because of their child. It's just, it's crazy. So I think all of those things in a combination, the coroner's office has done an extremely good job of tracking the particular deaths and the type of drug that it is. I mean, without them, we can't do our job. And also us prosecuting some of these folks for murder. And when we can make the case.
What is the sentence for fentanyl?
Life.
If you
deal fentanyl and someone dies, and you can prove that that is the fentanyl that caused them to die, you can receive a life sentence. The issues are people that are using drugs use maybe multiple drugs, not just one dose of fentanyl that they got. And we have to prove that the fentanyl that they got from the dealer wasn't mixed with something else from someone else, and that they used only what they were given by that dealer, and they died because of what was given to them by that dealer. Did they have more things at their house? Did they have stuff in their system ahead of time, which caused their death? So it's difficult to do, and oftentimes it does go back to your cell phone. So now we seize everyone's cell phone that dies of fentanyl or overdose death, because the theory is that you're addicted, you're going to use that drug immediately. So you're going to dial up your dealer and say, hey, I need whatever I need. You're not going to go far before you use it. Maybe in the car, maybe in the hotel, maybe in a Burger King parking lot or bathroom. And so we want that phone. And then from there, if we're able to get into the phone, which is hard to do because we don't have a password, can we map all of those phones together to see who's the last person that dealt to all of those people and how close in time were they? Can we make a case against that person? So we're seizing thousands of phones a year, and we're putting them on a very few called gray key devices when we don't have the passcode, because we can't issue a subpoena anymore to the phone company and say, unlock this phone for me, give me the passcode, because they're privacy protected, which I think is a shame. And I can get in your bank account, I can get into your house, I can get into any kind of private thing you have except your phone, and only in the United States. You think that happens in China or anywhere else, Saudi Arabia, everyone can get into their phone. So they uniquely make that phone for the United States so that we can't get into it because Congress has allowed us to not get into a phone. And I think it's a shame that that's where we are.
Well, let's shift a little bit.
Okay.
So we've talked about a lot of different things, but one of the main things that you just brought up is the amount of phones that you have, the amount of cases you guys are building. But you only have 55 assistant district attorneys. Am I correct there?
Yeah, but we have to take a few away from there because it's me, and it's kind of hard for me to get in court. Tracy Barbera, first assistant. Then we have some other bureau chiefs that actually go to court, but hard for them to.
So how many
supervise.
active
Around
prosecutors?
50. So around 50.
But how many cases?
We get around 15,000 a year, 15,000 a year. So it's not only the volume of the case, it's the type of case. So when you get those Tanner Jenkins cases that are enormous, they're this big, just the search warrants will fill up a house that they get. Then when you have to download his cell phones, and when they seize 3, and if you ever downloaded a cell phone, you could fill up rooms with, if you could print out everything on a sheet of paper, you have to go through that entire phone. You have to make sure a defense lawyer has access to that phone, everything that's in it. But then you add to it the murders. That's why the murder numbers is so important. And not all of them have an arrest, so maybe half to 60%. But for us, a murder takes us minimum 1 year to 3 to 5 years. Mm-hmm. And when you have a staff that's my sons and daughters' age, 30, and you have people that are leaving that are section chiefs that have been there for a long time because of the money, it's hard to keep up. So some cases get handed down to new lawyers, and a victim may have 2 or 3 lawyers that they've dealt with over a 3-year period of time. Then the different delays we have due to weather here, we seem to shut down for every rainstorm or freeze or whatever, although the last one was warranted. We
Snow.
lose jury weeks. So, and it makes it difficult when you're that short. So, we have 50 compared to Orleans, which is 88, Jefferson Parish, which is 75. And when you look at historically the number of murder cases we've had, it's hard to keep up and catch up with that. So what our goal is, in the tax or just any way that we can get it, if we can increase the number of assistant DAs to do this. That is, we have court all day long, every day. We have made commissioners' courts, which I think is a good thing, where the commissioners will only set bond. And it takes them a long time to do that. I would like to be able to devote assistant DAs only to setting bond.
Okay.
That's all you do all day long. Stay in court all day. You're not trying cases because you can't, because you're in court all day long. And then I'd like to have other DAs that go to court and handle regular motions and regular things, and then have another set of lawyers that can stay back and not have to go to court every day, but prepare their cases for trial. So when the judge says, "Are you ready for trial?" you can say yes.
But
or
you
not,
don't
no.
have that kind of
I don't
staff
have that,
right now.
I don't have that staff now.
And
I'd
I
also-
just did the math, and it's if you divide 15,000 cases by 50, that's 300 cases per prosecutor.
But that's only per year, and cases last a year to 3 years.
That's
so
what I'm saying. That's a lot,
it's,
right?
Yeah, it's 400, 500 cases per ADA. It's a lot of cases.
That's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
what's normal for a prosecutor to have?
Oh, man, you can look at studies all over, and it's a ridiculous amount of numbers that are 20 to 40 to 60 to 80, 100. I mean, it's,
300's a lot.
300 is way, it's way too much for us
So
to.
How
to
many
handle.
prosecutors would you need for your size, for
Yeah.
East Baton Rouge's size?
So, if I had 15 to 20, I mean, I'd like to be on par with Orleans at 88. I mean, we're a bigger city than Orleans, so why wouldn't not we have the same amount as them? Jefferson has 75. If I got 25 more, what I could do then is everyone could breathe. And the stress that these young people are under are phenomenal. The stress that my victims assistance counselors, that's where the rubber hits the road with the victims of murder, domestic violence. These people are pulling their hair out. They're young. They're CSW workers. It's really, really rough on them and their family. One real talented section chief lawyer left to say, I have to go home, I have to be a mother to my child. I cannot do this all day. And, love the work, love the people, but I got to take a break. And you understand
It
that.
makes sense. These jobs take a toll on you.
Absolutely. It's the secondary stress that you see. You see it on their faces now. And last year when we could not give a raise, when we were trying to give a raise as we can, we try to hold back and not hire, not buy things or cut down on color copiers. I mean, things like that we try to recycling so that we can have some money to give some kind of raise to these folks. And last year when we told them, look, I just cannot do it because I can't run in a deficit, which we're damn close to, you could see it like, we're steam out of the sails. And that's when I said, look, enough's enough. I have to go forward with the tax, which I hate to do.
So
so that's where we are. But be on par with Jefferson and Orleans. But to do that, I could have specialized sections for homicide, for gangs, for narcotics, for financial crimes, for sex crimes. People that are just, the best at what they do in that particular field. And if I had money that I knew that I was going to have, I could even prepare a budget for next year. Like, I don't know what money I'm getting from the city until December 15th, and I'll start January 1st. That's not a way to really run a business, and I can't really project what I'm going to do for the future or tell the public, hey, this is the new thing we're going to do this year. Or hey, assistant DAs, I think there's enough money to have a raise. Raises are a little part of the tax. It's just the ability to have an adequate living. It's more of, I just need to keep up.
So you requested a increase in your budget last year before the prior administration, Mayor Sharon Western Broom. Not only was that pretty much denied, your budget was axed and cut. So you took the biggest cut of all of the one of the biggest cuts.
I think the police may have taken a bigger 8%. We did a 5%.
Okay.
Cut. And then I think there was some money added at the end, kind of made it even. So,
but it's still not enough.
We're still drowning.
And the caseload, if I remember correctly from our prior reporting, you at this point are sitting on 22,000 cases.
Oh, yeah, at least. And probably 230 homicides, more than likely, around that number. And the numbers keep adding to it, which is tough. But we say homicides, which are big, but don't forget that non-fatal shooting is, to me, is just as important as the fatal one. And then the rapes really kind of get blown to the side, and some trafficking cases and the big narcotics cases, they're all important. The repeat thieves are important. I mean, there's a lot. So it's the ability to slow down and actually take care of the case the way you need to take care of it, and not flip a hamburger you're flipping from one, like your McDonald's, you're flipping to move to the next court date because you got to catch up. You have so many others waiting. You got customers standing in line. You want to slow that customer line down and give them a better product and cut down the backlog. And, to me, the other thing is guns. If I could slow down and pay more attention to people that have illegal guns, I'm not talking about legal guns, illegal guns with switches, change the culture on the street that, oh, shit, they could do something different. I just got caught with a gun. They just billed me right away. They charged me right away, and I'm in court right away. Something's changing. Maybe we need to think about how we change the attitudes of lawyers that deal with criminal defense lawyers who are doing their job. If they see things are being done differently, then they give advice differently.
Is that kind of the purpose of the tax? Talk to us about this
the purpose
tax
of
you're
the tax
proposing.
the purpose of the tax is just to expand the office, and so that we're not drowning. We want to be above water. We want to do a better job for public safety, and to make sure that we are giving them the best product we can. And that public safety should be number one. Look, I love going to libraries and having all the other fine things that we have with rec parks. But, if you're being killed in a rec park or library, it's not good. So this is something that's just absolutely necessary. And it's one that we've neglected for year after year after year. We've kind of been limping along where we've been given a little bit of increase at a time that we can kind of float and survive. And always in the back of my mind is that we need a parish prison, we need a juvenile facility, we need a public defender that's adequately funded. And I hate to be the guy that's just going to say, I'm going to look out for myself. But now after 17 years, I got to do it right now, or I'm not going to keep the staff that I have, and public safety is going to suffer. So I can only ask for a tax for my own office, knowing that we need public defender money, knowing we need a jail and a parish prison badly. That has to be dealt with. So despite my tax, we still have to look at how we're going to fund a parish prison and a juvenile facility. I believe that if my tax passes, that the money that the city gives me, which is $8 million a year, that a lot of that money can go to a public defender, because you cannot have an outsized DA and a small-sized public defender who handles 80% of the cases. And so to be fair to everyone, which we have to, as the DA, I have to be fair to a defendant, that frees up that money that the mayor and city council can give money to increase the public defender staff, and then maybe some for the courts and other police or criminal justice related things that are needed, and get us out of where we are and actually spend money on where we need to spend, and not where we kind of want to spend it. And that's what my intent is.
When does it go before a vote?
May 3rd, assuming that the tax commission approves it, which I assume they will. And so it's going to be a campaign. It's a lot of work, just like any other campaign. It's nasty to ask people for money, especially even when you're running when you're running for the own office. I mean, it's so distasteful to say, "Would you give me $10,000? I'm running for a DA," and you can't promise you're going to give anything back to that person other than good, honest government. It's hard to ask for money.
It is.
And it's the same thing with a tax. You're asking money, people give you money to raise their own taxes, which would be around $60 a year. Is what it looks like. And so there'll be a lot of issues. Who pays taxes to constitutional officers now? And the St. George has that kind of on the budget. I don't know that Central Baker Zachary give money for constitutional offices. I think it really all falls on the city parish. So you have to treat everyone evenly. I know Tony Clayton did a sales tax, and his was a sales tax because of the amount of the business structure that they have there. he would have really crippled some businesses there had he done a property tax. So I think it was wise for him to do that. And I do believe that people in Baton Rouge will support a tax, knowing that it's going to go for this, for public safety and for the DA's office, hopefully that they have respect for. I've met a lot of folks that I just do not know, said, hey, I hope you get your tax. And I tell them I'm sorry. But they said, no, we want to get it right. So, yeah, we're looking forward to it in a sense. But it will be a lot of work, and we're prepared to answer whatever questions, and know some people will be totally against it, and I absolutely accept that.
Understood. Okay, let's round out by repeat offenders. We've covered it repeatedly. Low bonds. You see the revolving door. Law enforcement is sick and tired of it. Their morale goes down that you arrest this person, you bust your butt to arrest somebody, you put your life on the line to get them. They're behind bars. They go before a judge. Their bond is set at $3,000. 12% of that is a little over $300, and they're back out on the streets.
Yeah.
How much do you as a DA deal with that?
Yeah, every day. We have an email address that the police know. It's one email address that goes to every assistant DA, investigator, and me particularly. So I generally will get the email before my others get it, and I'll see what they're saying, and then we'll start to try to resolve whatever the issue is. We ask them to tell us, if you arrested someone that's a repeat offender, make sure that you include it in the affidavit of probable cause, that a judge knows this person is now out on 2 bonds or 3 bonds, or he's been arrested this many times, or been convicted this many times, or this is what he told me. I'm going to call this person or judge or DA or whoever, and I'm going to get out of jail tomorrow and I'll be at your house the next day. I need to know that right away. That's why we set up the commissioner's type of court and set it up at 1 o'clock so that, can you give us time and let everyone stay in jail, stay behind, so that we can wake up at a reasonable hour, even if it's 5 in the morning, and let's see who's been booked the night before that are bad actors, and let us be able to check to see how many warrants are out for that person or how many bonds that person is out on, so that we can put a package together to give to the court setting the bond to say, hey, let's slow down and we need time on this one. And I think that's the value in the commissioner's court of trying to slow that down and not having people call judges willy-nilly throughout the night saying, hey, so-and-so's my client, he just got arrested. Well, you set a bond. Well, that's not how it's done anymore. It's done by, no, we're going to wait until commissioner's court. Some are at 9. We'd rather 1 o'clock, and I'm not the expert on this, so I may be wrong, but just so we have more time to notify the court, this is one we really want you to take a look at. But that takes time when you have 50 people on the docket, and you have one ADA that wakes up and does it at 1 in the morning and 1 in the evening, and tries to put together the worst of the worst numbers and make sure that bond is set. So that's what the goal is. And again, I think with more people, more personnel, and if the commissioner's court were staffed the way it should have been staffed, having all them doing that type of work, then you have a much better chance that you're going to keep those that you need to keep in jail. The other issue that goes along with that is, as you know, the parish prison has limited space because of how old it is. And if you've ever taken a tour through there, it's pitiful. And so we now house 700 to 800 people out of prison, which cost us a ton of money. That money could be saved if we're able to have another prison, and they would all be here in Baton Rouge as opposed to being shipped out. And we're talking about $8 to $10 million a year that we pay to other sheriffs to house our prisoners. And so if we had a better working prison system, like in the north, the prison is next to the district attorney and the court and the public defender. Everyone is there, has ready access to all of it, and you can call people in quickly. Now you have to transport them by bus back and forth. Makes it a lot more difficult on bonds and hearings for motions. So I think all of that goes together at play. But surely just having time to slow down and advise the court, this is what we think the bond should be. Obviously, the defendant has a right to say, we're full of whatever, and the bond should not be that high. But as long as we have a fair shot then if a judge makes a decision and we disagree, we may ask the judge reconsider, or we just lose, and we go on and do the best that we can. But we don't want to lose. You want the court to make the right decision. And one reason I would never want to be a judge is setting bonds, because that's a tough position to be in, because the defendant does have a right to a bond in just about all cases.
Except first degree.
And so, that's a tough position to be in.
But is there a set, and I guess this is something I want to know, is there a set protocol? If I remember in all the years I've been reporting, there is none. It's kind of up to the judge's discretion.
I mean, back in the day, I want to remember, it's 50 years ago, there may have been like a bond schedule that says, hey, this is what the kind of range is for felony theft, for burglary. I mean, I want to recall that, but I'm not positive. And so I think that's the best of my recollection of how that's been, but there really is nothing set in stone as to what's the appropriate bond. I mean, is a $150,000 bond on second-degree murder, which is in the ballpark between 150 to 300, is that reasonable for someone who's a millionaire, or is it unreasonable for someone who is unemployed? Do you go by the person's ability to pay a bond? I mean, that's a big argument over bonds, no bonds. To me, it's all about public safety. It doesn't matter who you are, what you make. It's about your propensity to be violent.
Does the DA's office work with the mayor's office? And I ask that for a reason, that we now have a new administration. Is that impacting you or going to impact you at all?
So, the mayor's office, so we have a new mayor, and we've been working well with him and Chief LaDuff. So it's been really good for us. Just gave us some additional space, because we have ADAs and investigators that are in lockers and closets at the office. And if you ever walk through our office, you'll see we have dead files or boxes of files from last year before. They're just lying down the hallway. So the mayor just did free up some space on the former courtrooms on the 6th floor for us, which is going to help us a whole lot. So the mayor's office typically has the programs that they get funds for, and so we will work with them on those funds. So I know the mayor's looking at the funds, the current mayor is looking at the funds that the previous mayor had, to see which ones he wants to keep or go forward. I was able to meet with the mayor and Chief LaDuff and give them an outline of many pages of what I thought should happen, or where we need to go. Unfortunately, it all takes money and manpower, and I think he's looking for a money tree to shake, and he's probably not finding the money tree like everyone else is not found. So now it's like, where can you cut or change to make that? Because I really think that if we're able to handle education, like we'll see hopefully soon, and if we're able to have a unified strategy of how to impact group and gang violence, that you'll see a big change in Baton Rouge, and we can change Baton Rouge. But you have to have a unified approach where all the departments work together and they set aside whatever it is they have to set aside to work. It can happen.
Anything else that you would like to talk about, Hillar, or tell our viewers while we have you?
No, it's just, I've been doing this for my 17th year, and I'm getting up there, but I love this job that I have, particularly working with the young people. The young assistant DAs, the young investigators, they get after it every day, working with the policemen and the sheriff's deputies. Unbelievable. I like going to the crime scenes, particularly in homicides, because you get to meet police officers, the new ones, the older ones. They get to see you. You get to talk to them. You get to see the community out there. Try not to pick and choose just certain places to go. I think it's good for everyone to go to those scenes and just be seen. So I really like what I'm doing. I want to do it for another term. So after this tax election, I'll have another election. Hopefully the voters will let me do it, because I think I have the best job in the state of Louisiana, to tell you the truth, and been treated really fairly by media here. Try to be open with the media and try to give them as much as you can without hurting a case. I think that's helpful for the public to know exactly what's going on. Politics are distasteful, having to beg or ask for money, whether it's for an election or from a mayor's office or from city council. It's tough. So maybe having your own budget where the taxpayer, that's the person that's funding you, that you strictly answer to them is a good thing, I think, for a district attorney, because it's a real powerful office. You can use it one way or the other. And I've come through the ranks of several DAs and seeing how their structure is, of how they run the office. And so I'm really looking forward to it. If we're able to be adequately funded, I'm really looking forward to some really good things.
And the DA's office is very, very important. So thank you for all you do. I appreciate you taking the time out to come and give us the insight, a lot of important insight into all that goes on. And you kind of pretty much hold the keys to when we say we don't feel safe, or we do feel safe, because who you prosecute, the sentence you get, the cases your people put on has a lot to do with all of us. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, listeners, that's going to do it for us on this episode of Louisiana Unfiltered, and we will see you next week.